Welcome to Module 3. This module is about karma. So I wanted to talk a little bit about karma in this training because I think it's important for all of us to understand our patterns and behaviors. This is something that I have done a lot of work on for myself, and I will probably share some of my own personal experiences. Actually, I'll probably share them a lot throughout this training. Because I find it's easier when we learn from other people. So one of the books that I absolutely loved for karma was the 11 Karmic Spaces by Majaya Shakti Bhagavati. I believe is how you say it. It's amazing. This book is amazing. Okay, so if you want to explore karma on a little deeper level, this is a great book to check out. So what is karma anyway? So karma is, in a sense, your thoughts, emotions, actions, and patterns that become part of your being. I'm going to touch my screen here. There we go. That become part of who you are. The thing that is most misunderstood about karma is that there is no such thing really as bad and good karma. Even though I still to this day will say to my kids, that's bad karma. And I know that that's not necessarily the case. Karma isn't inherently bad or good. It has a very neutral energy to it. It is simply the natural consequence of the energy that you put out there. So I'm not even going to use the word consequence. Well, I just did. I mean, I don't want you to think of it in terms of punishment when I say consequence, though. So instead we're going to say energy. It's the energy that you put into the universe. So if you, for example, are in victimhood of whatever, you're a victim in a relationship, you're a victim, a money victim, you're whatever the case may be, you are consistently putting that victim energy out into the world, okay? If you've read anything about manifestation, and there's been all kinds of stuff about manifesting what you want and desire in the world, this is something you're gonna hear a lot of, like what you put out there comes right back, right? What goes around comes around. Those are like all the sayings. So that is essentially karma, but I want you to think of it in terms of a wheel. Okay, a karmic wheel, because it's these wheels of samskaras, which is habits or patterns, right? That we create for ourselves. All right. So what happens is that we can come into this life with karma from a previous life. Okay. When we come in to this life with previous karma, we are already kind of set onto this wheel of motion of habits and patterns. Now throw into conditioning that we have from our environment, then the wheel continues to go, and our actions and how we react to those actions, and all of these pieces start to make the wheel move. And I'm not even going to say move faster, because it doesn't matter how fast or slow. I'm just trying to give you a visual. But what it does is it creates these, I almost think of it in terms of like a divot. When when you're taking a wheelbarrow and you're wheeling it out to the garden, but you use the same path each time. If you use the same path each time, you're going to create a divot, right? And once the wheel gets down into that divot, it's really hard to get your wheelbarrow out, right? So that's essentially what karma does. It makes it harder to step out of, a lot of times, your comfort zone, right? Because it's easier, it makes sense and feels better to stay in the pattern of knowing, all right? So even though you might hate a pattern that you have, again, I like to pull from personal example. There's lots of patterns that I have that I don't like. I can be very pessimistic. It's something I have to really, really work on. I tend to always think the worst. So if I trace this back to my conditioning, right? I want to understand how did I get here? And I'm not looking to blame. This is really important. When I bring this back on my parents or my grandparents, this is not about blaming, all right? This is just about understanding. So I go back and I'm like, okay, I wonder how my parents were, like with this pessimism, you know? And I can immediately connect it to one of my parents who will say outwardly, like, oh, everything's good right now, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or if you expect something good, you will be disappointed. I mean, these are things that are like actually said in my life and were said growing up. And even though I didn't cognitively like think about them when I was a kid, they were going on around me. That energy was around me all the time. So, and my other parent isn't real super optimistic either. So I kind of had it from both sides. Now, so then I take that and I'm like, okay, what about my grandparents? Like, where did my parents get this conditioning, you know? And I don't have to look too far to find it there either in my grandparents. Now, my parents and grandparents are wonderful people, and they never knew that they were doing this. It wasn't, again, we're not looking for blame. What I'm looking at though is to help me understand how I got to where I am now. On a deeper level than that, I take it as far back as my previous lives. Now, if you are not one to believe in reincarnation or previous lives, then that's fine. You keep your mind set right on your current life, meaning the conditioning from your parents, grandparents, so on and so forth. But for me, somebody who openly believes in reincarnation in previous lives, I actually did some work with a friend of mine who does some shamanic work to help me understand how far back this mindset goes, how far back these fears and these habits go. And it goes back numerous lives. So the idea is that we are brought here on this earth to learn. Okay, that is why our soul chose to come here, to come back. And again, if you don't believe in back, then just here, all right? Is to learn. This life is just this massive classroom, okay? And if we don't learn what we are supposed to learn, and if we don't stay open to the flow of the universe and what the universe has to bring to us, and if we don't work on getting rid of some of these layers of karmic energy, then we will just continuously come back. We will just continuously, one right after the other, right? One life right after the other. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Yes. Many people believe that, you know, once you shed all of those karmic layers, then you will eventually reach, in yoga we call it samadhi, nirvana, heaven, whatever. You merge completely with the divine energy. That's ultimately everyone's goal, right? Right? We want to find that and stay within that bliss, because suffering happens here. You know, and again, there's many traditions that believe that hell is here. That this Satan, in a sense, is like our ego. It's the way we beat ourselves up, the way that we tear ourselves down. So the suffering is on this earth here and now. So how do we navigate this? How do we figure out how to release these patterns so that we can, for one, grow on the soul level, and also help with the suffering, you know? And that is essentially to tap into what is good, what is real, what is truth. And none of the things that we tend to hang on to as a culture are any of those things. And I just simply mean the physical, how we look, you know, all the material elements. I'm talking more like, again, the soul level of why we're here. And we're here to love, and we are here to be compassionate and to be kind. And none of that can happen unless it starts on the soul level. And that's really hard to do when you are stuck in this karmic mess, right? I kind of feel like it's like a web, and it just keeps you stuck right where you are. So you really have to start by loving yourself. And yeah, I wish I could give it to you in a better, like, step by step, A, do this, B, do this, C, but it's really, you just have to love yourself. You have to work on healing those wounds. You have to work on vulnerability and showing up to that vulnerability, and taking down the walls, taking down the defenses, letting yourself be seen. A lot of our karma is intertwined with previous trauma in our life trauma, genetic trauma that we bring with us from one life to the next. And so, I love the saying, and I don't know, it's a quote by somebody, that when you heal yourself, you heal the lineages before you and the lineages behind you. And I just think that's so true. And that is part of that karmic web. You are able to then release karmic contracts that you have with previous lives and those people in your lives. So a contract might look like, I use the word contract, but think of the word connection. So, you had in a previous life, you had a marriage with somebody that was really not good, and there was a lot of suffering for you both. If that's never healed in that life, then you carry that energy with you into the next, and so does that person. And they might show up in a different way in this new life, and as a different person in a different body, and but you're reliving the same contract. Okay? And again, if you don't believe in reincarnation, let's put that into terms of today. If you date the same kind of person that is not good for you, and you don't get to the bottom of why you continuously date that person, then you're going to continue to date that type of person. It's the same pattern. It's the same energy. And until you get within yourself to understand why, you go back to that same type of person who maybe abuses you, or who treats you poorly, or doesn't support you, then again, you will continue to repeat the same patterns. So in this particular program, I could tell you all day long to do yoga, to skin brush, to meditate, and all of those things. And all of those things are healing and beautiful and wonderful. But this is the work that I feel is the most transformative. It's really being able to look at who you are and to learn to love each and every piece of who you are. This isn't about looking at who you are and just being disgusted by it. This is about looking at who you are and knowing that all that karma, all that stuff is not innately who you are. That you are a deep, loving, divine person. And that all of this other stuff is just stuff. It's just old stuff and some new stuff that needs healed. And don't you want to heal your grandma? Don't you want to heal your second aunt, twice removed, whatever? I mean, don't you want to heal your children? That's what this is about. That's it right here. Is it's kind of like self-care in children. Like, if you don't show your kids what it's like to love yourself, they're not going to love themselves. I have a situation right now with one of my kids, my oldest son, and he is just really struggling with school. Not academically. Academics he's got down. But he's been in a learning environment in the last 3 years that it just doesn't serve him. It took us a long time to really figure that out because we've had this tough it out nature, like this, you got to just tough it out. That's life. That's, you got to deal with people, all the time in life that you don't want to deal with. And, feeding him all of these conditioned responses that we've had, my husband and I both. This is, but when after we would say it to him, we would walk away and he and I, my husband, would look at each other and be like, really? Like, is this really, like, do we really believe this? Like, yeah, you do have to deal with difficult people sometimes in your life, but I don't know about you, but if they're really that difficult, I'm just not going to be around them. I'm going to choose to energetically move beyond them, right? So we made some conscious decisions about what we were going to do about his education, but we can't do anything until a couple months from now. So right now, he's still in the same situation. And we were having a discussion last evening about an issue with lying. He can lie. He can be a good liar too. And this is something that we've really worked a lot on and we've talked a lot about. And we don't notice the lying as much at home. He does it sometimes. And sometimes it's just to elaborate a story, to make the story sound much more exciting.